And welcome on into a special show here on claibsonline.com. I'm Joe Roderick, and being joined right now as we remember the great Jay Randolph Jr., John Marecek, and Rob Fischer, two guys that knew him well. We all worked with Jay at one point or another in our careers, and I appreciate both you guys doing this.
Oh, no problem. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely happy to be here and tell some stories. We got some great ones for sure.
I just like that Fish showed up late and didn't reply to texts in true Jay fashion in honor of this.
I was just trying to carry on the legacy. Yes.
So I mean, I'm going to start this off because when I told John that I wanted to do this, and I said, yeah, I'm going to reach out to Fish, John immediately said, you need to have us on together. So I don't know everyone's backstory here. I mean, I know we all worked with him. I know he's crossed paths with a lot of people. I think Sarah Bruce said it best. He was just kind of a Tasmanian devil that worked his way into your lives at some point or another. So when did you guys first start working or meet Jay?
You go first.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, I started working in sports radio at KASP when KASP first started back in 1992 when the first all sports station started in St. Louis, and worked with Jay, and and then Johnny, when did you come on board?
Well, the first time I met him, he worked at SNI with my dad in sales, which he was not good at. He did that could you imagine Junior in sales? He would dressed like a real worker, like he had nice clothes on and showed up to work. And I don't know how long it lasted. It didn't last long. That was the first time I met him. And then I came in as an intern in 98. And so I think I started working on weekends in 99, 98, 99, something like that. And I was doing an overnight board shift on Friday starting at midnight or Saturday morning starting at midnight all the way through. And my shift ended at 8 a.m. So I worked Fairways and Greens with him and Jeff Smith every Saturday. And actually my first time on the air was reading the prizes at the end of Fairways and Greens, letting everyone know who won a Sabona or an iron swipe. We had big prizes on the show every week. That was my first time on the air, him putting me on.
Yeah, I guess that when I first started getting real close to Jay was when I moved back from Las Vegas, which was in 97. I was in Vegas 95 to 97, and when I moved back, I started doing the show with him, doing the morning show, and I had a pretty good gig because they decided to take advantage of me coming back from out of town. I did the midday show with Rammer, but I also did 2 hours. I didn't have to do that first, which was good, but I did the last 2 hours of the morning show. So that's when I really was around Jay day in, day out. And we became really tight and became really good friends. And, it was great because we had the same sort of feelings on what we wanted to do. Jay's always famous for saying, I'm not a media person, I'm an entertainer. And and I've used that line, I think, through the years, but we both kind of felt that way. We weren't there to break news. We were there to just fun and to have people listening to us have fun. And so we had the same sort of feelings, and then we had the same sort of feelings of what we wanted to do as far as travel and things of that nature. And John, you know just looking through some pictures here in the last week, I mean, the places that we went, the Super Bowls, the Kentucky Derby. I mean, we went on a lot of great trips, and they were so much fun. Yeah, they were sprinkled in some work here and there, but they were a blast, man. And I had so much fun with him. And then, just got to know him, got to know his family really well. And so became very close probably in 97 is when it came close.
That was he was known for saying, you would get there, you'd get ready to get on the air and go, Jay, what are we going to talk about? What are we doing first segment? He goes, let's just have fun. Yeah. That's what it was. It was just go in there and let's have, I mean, so we did shows just sporadically throughout. I mean, we did Super Bowls, we did the Derby, we did all that stuff. But the first time I talked him in, took about as much talking into getting him to do afternoons with me as it did to get John to do a show with me back in the day too. Pretty much getting them out or getting them into regular 4 nights, 5 days a week radio. And Jay started off our first show. I think he tried to sell a couch, his couch. 3 o'clock on a Monday.
I got a couch
on CBS Sports 920, and he's trying to sell a couch.
About right.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, it was man, it was just listening to him was always enjoyable because he just said whatever the hell he wanted to say and talked about whatever he wanted to talk about. Now, I mean, yeah, a lot of times it was sports and he'd talk about sports, but sometimes if it was sports or he wanted to entertain. He wanted to people that it's amazing seeing the people's comments over the last week about how if you met Jay, you felt like he was one of your friends. You had known him for a long time. And it's because Jay didn't care who it was. He wanted to have fun, and he wanted everybody around him to have fun, whether it was listening to a sports radio show, whether it was playing golf, whether it was just sitting out on a back patio. He wanted to have fun with whatever he was doing, and he wanted to make sure that everybody around him was having fun too. And and it just being around him, for people who didn't know him, if you were around him, you just smiled. He brought a smile to your face. And if you did know him, you knew smile and you knew you were in for fun if you were going to be around Jay.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this with you about, taking it on another step with the fun stuff. Our trips it was fun to go to these Super Bowls because you would see a group of people from all these radio stations who were like covering the game. Like, we're in Seattle and our team didn't even get to the postseason, but we're breaking down everything all day. They're having meetings afterwards. I remember there was one of the Seattle guys who were talking about having their meeting about tomorrow's show afterwards. And I'm like, who the hell's doing that? You're here. Your team's not here. Go have fun. And that was what I loved about our shows is the shows that we had at the Super Bowl. And Jay and Fish were both this way. It was like, okay, we get there Sunday. We're going to the media things on Sunday, Monday, and media day Tuesday. We're going to get everything we can so that we don't have to do jack the rest of the week. That was one of the years we did it when it was in Tampa. It was like, all right, we got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to record the press conference from the commissioner. We're going to air that for 30 minutes at the end of the day. Brooks is here. He can throw to all the crap that we've already done, and we're going to Disney World. That's what we did. Yep. And that was a Jay trip. That was his whole thing. We went to Disney World. We went to Universal Studios, and that was the end of us. And then Fish went back. Did you go to the game? Yeah, you went back and went to the game.
I went back to the game and went back to Orlando after.
Yeah, so I sat in Orlando with Fish and his family in a condo, or with Jay and his family in a condo, and watched the Super Bowl. And then I went to the PGA merchandise show after that with him. That's him. He brought me into this stuff. Him and Fish both brought me into this stuff. I was a punk-ass kid, 21 years old, and my dad owns the station. And is running the station. So they could have all been, very the opposite of it. But both of them were very, very inclusive. And I've always appreciated it. And Jay was the one reason that I got to go to the merchandise show. He picked me to be the one who would be his engineer. And he could have picked anybody to do it. And I will always be grateful to both of them. But Jay bringing me into that one, those guys didn't have to bring my little punk ass in there. There was plenty of other guys, but they wanted me there. And I think we had a whole hell of a lot of fun. Like right after that first trip, it was like every trip was like, where can we go next? Derby. Cool. Why are you going to the Derby? Don't know. We want to go. Find a way to sell it. We'll make money and we'll make excuses. And then we find a way to stay for the whole week instead of 3 days when they wanted us to come home. That's what we did.
So I think that's, because John, you got out of radio. Fish, you went down to Memphis. I think that's where Jay and I bonded, is because he saw that in me, that he saw that, okay, here's another guy that I can get to take me all these trips. And
that was key. That was key. That was key. Getting on trips, getting out of the studio, getting away from everything, and just being somewhere where we can just have a boys' weekend out, And And we did. I mean, my favorite trip, I think the most stories out of it, John, is when we went to the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it was
amazing.
Our plan was to go to the Derby. We were invited by Churchill Downs to come do the show like Monday and Tuesday from Churchill Downs the week of the Derby. So we made plans to go to Louisville on Sunday, and we were going to be there Monday and Tuesday, do the show, and then we were going to go back to St. Louis, and then we were going to go back to Churchill Downs on Friday to go to the Derby on Saturday. And we ended up, and God love Jay. I mean, credit Jay for this. Again, it was everybody that we met, including the mayor of Louisville, became our best friends. And next thing you know, we're invited to be in the parade on the mayor's float. We went on the mayor of Louisville and the mayor of Cincinnati have a boat race down the river that week. We were invited to be on the mayor of Louisville's boat. And we were on his boat. We were with Miss America, Heather French. We were with what's his name? Dirtwood Smith. Is that his name?
Dirtwood Smith. Yeah. From the dad 70s show.
The dad from the 70s show, or the dad from Dead Poets Society, whichever one you want to look at. He was with us and was sitting at his table. And they ended up inviting us to stay the whole week. Now, we had only packed for 2 days. But they invited us to stay the whole week. They got us a cheap hotel that was going to cost the same amount of money as it was going to cost for us to come back just on Friday and Saturday. So we were like, might as well stay. Shopping, we all bought new clothes. So we actually had something to wear for the rest of the week. We ended up having the mayor on the radio with us. He'd come in, we'd call his office directly on the air, and we'd be like, yeah, can I talk to the mayor? And they'd say, can we ask who's calling, please? It's like, it's Jay Randolph Jr. Oh, sure. Hold on 1 second. We'll put you right through. It was insane. It was insane what happened. And then on Derby Day, we're down on our luck. We're losing every single bet the entire day. And all of a sudden I got to the Derby. Well, we're going to go somewhere nice tonight, or we're going to eat at White Cat. We're putting it all in on Fusaichi Pegasus. And Darce didn't come through and hit for us. And to bring a big celebration that Saturday. But it was, the Super Bowl was always a week. Derby, that was a week that was just filled with story after story after story. And it was so much fun. And the pictures just show it. And that's probably my favorite trip that I've ever been on.
So what year was that you guys went and did that?
2002, I believe.
So it was either 2000. I want to say, I think it was 2016 is when Jay had me do that same trip. He goes, this is something I did. He goes, we did this back, 10, 15 years ago. And he told me everything you just said. I mean, it was the exact story that I heard. And he goes, see if they're still doing that. And
yeah, and they'll probably remember us.
And sure, I mean, it was called the AT&T Morning Line is what it was called. And they brought you there. They brought you in Sunday. They, treated you like royalty and had you do stuff all day Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. You did the show, and then you were kicked out. They were just, all right, go back home now, go away. And I tell you what, Jay spent those 48 hours trying to get somebody to invite us to stay for the rest of the
week. It was really the only way to do it. I mean, it's because if you have to do it any other way, it's not worth it. We went to, I think it was 5 Indianapolis 500s together, and we had the greatest setup. We'd buy tickets for the race, and we'd have press passes as well. And if you had press passes, and if you were on the network for the Indy 500, they'd send you passes, and they'd send you a parking pass. Parking pass was literally right behind the infield, one of the best parking spots in the whole compound. And we'd go there. We'd get there at like 8 a.m. We'd tailgate all morning. We'd go to the race, and none of us were racing fans. It was just the event, to go to the event. And as you were saying earlier, let's go somewhere. Let's get out. Where can we go next? This was the deal. We went to the Indy 500, and it was such a cool experience. We did it for years, and then all of a sudden we weren't carrying the race anymore, so our parking pass went away, And we were like, well, yeah, we'll still go. And we ended up parking like a mile away from the track in some guy's front lawn, drinking beer in his garage. And then we had to walk with the cooler all the way to the track. And as we're walking to the track this mile and carrying this cooler behind us, we looked at each other, we're like, yeah, this is the last time we're doing this, because it wasn't easy anymore. I mean, they made it difficult, and it was like, man, we got spoiled. Everything that we've done, Super Bowls, it's you're right there, the access and everything, the Kentucky Derby, we were right there. We were there the whole week. We're hanging out with the mayor, and now all of a sudden we got to hang out with the commoners for this Indianapolis 500. Screw that. We're not doing that again. That was the last time that we went.
Joe, at the Derby, we're walking around just before the race because you got like 90 minutes between the race before and the Derby. So just walking around, and one of them says, I wonder where we can get with these press passes. We walked up to, so we're like, down low on the main concourse of Churchill Downs. We peek out trying to find where the finish line is. We find the finish line, just walk out. Usher there says nothing. So we're just kind of like, we'll just stand here. And so I ran and got us mint juleps, and we got a picture of the three of us standing at the finish line of the Kentucky Derby with mint juleps. It's like, you can't, how am I supposed to go? Like, Stacy wants to go. My wife wants to go. I don't know how in the hell I'm going to do this, because the ticket it would cost is like $1,000 or $2,000 for us to go sit where we stood. And it's not going to be better than that.
And our horse won.
And our horse
won. I mean, it was that and the picture is amazing, because all three of us are wearing like decided that we had to buy luggage. We didn't have any more clothes because we were only supposed to be there 2 days. We all bought these flowered shirts we wore, and we had just bad shirts, and we had Go Baby Go hats on. I mean, we looked like Derby nerds. We were fans that day, man. And we're standing at the finish line with our disgusting watered down mint juleps, just having the time of our life.
Yeah, with people who spent thousands of dollars. They've got to be looking at us like, who let these three idiots down here? We just, and literally,
is somebody going to check their tickets?
Right. No one's just waiting the whole time. Somebody's going to say something, right? No.
It was
nobody
unbelievable.
said a word. But yeah, exactly what Fish said about that trip. I remember the first night they had a big group meal out somewhere. And we had nothing in common with any of these other guys that were there. They were there to cover the Derby. They were there. So we go to this dinner, and everybody's like huddled in one spot. There are three people sitting at the bar pounding beers, and that's when the mayor came over. They came over, and they're like, "These are the guys that I want to hang out with." They look like,
and became our best friend.
And then he was the guy that took care of us. I mean, he sent us a signed picture and like a pen thing when display to the radio station. All three of us got one. That's how tight we were with the mayor. Fish was gonna move down there when Louisville got a basketball team. That's how close we were.
Yeah,
he was gonna be on the committee bringing them to town.
They were the Vancouver Grizzlies at the time, and the Grizzlies were going to move to Louisville. That when we get the Grizzlies play-by-play guy for the Grizzlies, we're going to make. It's like, yes. Well, it turns out a couple of years from the television sideline guy for the Grizzlies, but they're not in Louisville; they're in Memphis. So it was quite remarkable. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I'm going to try and show the picture. There we are at the finish line. I mean, look at it. Look at those hats. We have matching hats on.
You look like babies in that picture too. I mean, that is.
I know. 2002. At that point, I was 22. I think 22, 23 years old. I was a baby.
But it was something else, man.
I mean,
the amount of pictures that we have, like the spring training pictures that we have. I mean, we sat the one year. So Joe, at spring training, you weren't there. You haven't seen it. So like where that green roof is out in right field.
Yeah.
It used to just be a party deck that anybody could go stand at. They had a bar set up there, and anybody could go hang out. Well, most media people go sit in the press box. The three of us, we sat at the bar in right field, and that's where we covered the games. We're out there with notebooks, taking notes. Yes, just have a cocktail next to you, taking notes. We did our job, but we had fun doing it, and we were a unique group in that we went and covered talked to players. We did the interviews. We were there for post-game stuff. We did all the work stuff, but we just did it a completely different way. I don't know that it would have been the same if Jay wasn't there, but Jay was at the center of all of it and the ringleader half the time of doing all this crap.
You know, Rob, you talk, you know, everybody knows you do the sideline now for the Grizzlies, and it's through Jay the first time that I met you. And this is also a Super Bowl story, because when the Super Bowl was down in New Orleans, I had gone to my first one the year before. It was in Indianapolis, and that was the first time I ever went and did the whole Radio Row thing. And I got back from it, and Jay was like, "It's in New Orleans next year, right?" He goes, "I'm going with you." And so we had a whole group. There were 5 of us that went down to this, and Jay insisted that we drive down there. He didn't want to fly down there. He insisted that we drive down there. So we got a minivan, rented a minivan, and Jay posted up in the back corner of the minivan, the 12 hours down and the 12 hours back. But it just so happened the Sunday that we were driving down there, the Grizzlies had like a 2:00 Sunday afternoon game. It could not have worked out any more perfectly than us going down there and going to this game. So I was like, Jay, I'm like, you know, I was like, don't you have a guy down in Memphis that could get us tickets? He goes, yeah, let me text him. So he texted you, whatever, and he's like, okay, Fish said he's got us 5 tickets for this game. And we get there, and damn it, Fish, I mean, you had us 10, 20 rows at like mid-court sitting there for this game. And Jay's walking to the seats, and he was like, I knew Fish liked my dad. He goes, I didn't know he liked him this much.
Do anything for Jay Sr. for sure. Yeah, that's before we had John Morant. It was a little bit easier back then. Yeah.
But we get down there. I mean, we've been driving since the morning from St. Louis down to Memphis on our way down to New Orleans. And we get there to the parking lot, and we're trying to find parking for this. And Jay didn't ask you for a parking pass. But Jay goes, go find the employee parking lot. He goes, we'll figure it out. And Jay sat there and argued with the woman in the employee parking lot. She goes, we're here with Rob Fischer. Fish.
Didn't work?
It worked. I think she just gave up.
It got Fish?
It got to the point where she was like, screw these people. I don't want to fight with them anymore. Just go park wherever the hell you want.
Yeah. My goodness. That's funny. Yeah. The thing was, he always had a plan, but he wanted you to do it.
Yeah.
Just get us in there. Get us in there. Make it happen. You're like, well, huh? All right. Yeah. Always a great plan, but never the plan maker.
No. And you never said no. It's like,
no.
All right, fine. I'll see what I can do.
That's right. That's right.
So we've all Super Bowl down in New Orleans with them too, right?
Oh yeah.
And
it was great because the first time we went, first time that I went to the Super Bowl in New Orleans with them, we stopped. Funny, we stopped in Memphis to get some food, and I mean, just crazy ideas just popping in his head. He's like, oh, let's go to Graceland. It's like, all right, I've never been to Graceland, and sure, let's go to Graceland. We're driving to New Orleans. We still have another 6 hours to go, and we just decide to take 2 hours and just cruise around Graceland for a while. And we take. It's the only time I've ever toured Graceland, and I've lived here for 20 years now. But the only time that I've ever toured Graceland was when I went with Jay, and we went and toured Graceland on our way to New Orleans. And then we got down to New Orleans. That was the worst. We was sick, like on Saturday. Left. I was getting sick. And when you're getting sick, New Orleans is not the place to go. So we drove down in New Orleans, and literally the first day I didn't even drink Sunday night because I had to do a thing with Steve Savard on Channel 4 that night. And I did it. And so I didn't even have any drinks. And apparently Jay had never had hurricanes before. Because I warned everybody, if you're going to have a hurricane, just 1 is good, 2 is the limit. Don't go over.
I don't remember that. You didn't warn. I wish you'd have told me.
I was warned that. Yeah, that was the warning he gave me when we went down there. Yes,
because he learned.
Yeah.
After having four of them that night, and just let's just say that it was not pretty. But I
at Pat O'Brien's, and I don't think we moved.
No.
We had a listener show up, and then it was you, me, Jay, and Tony Hubert, producer, and they didn't come to collect the glasses. They just left the glasses on the table, and by the time we left, I don't think you could see the table.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that I got up, and I almost went down. Like we all almost. It was brutal. So I don't remember you ever warning me.
I know that Jay painted the walls of our bathroom. I'll tell you that right now. And so the next, I'm the only one that's not drinking. And the next day, I have no voice. I did 2 days, 3 days of our Super Bowl coverage without being able to speak. And Jay didn't that. So Jay every day he'd know how I'm doing, and we're about to start the show, and he'd look at me and he's like,
I don't know if Fish just froze there or if he was saying or if that was Jay just doing
I thought he was just breathing.
I think Fish's feed froze on us right as he was about to get to the good part of that story. But
I can assure you, he probably told him that as the music was playing, "All right, dog, you host." Oh, hey, you're back.
Yeah, now he's back.
I'm back. But he'd tell me to host, and I would start, and I'd be like, "Good afternoon, everybody." And he was like, "Jesus Christ, I guess I got to start the show." And then he'd have to host the show. And it made him back. Because, you know, Joe, like you said, on the drive to New Orleans, he plants himself back in the corner. And that's how he would do his show, too. He just kind of plant himself, say, "You take care of it. And I'm just going to join in, you know, and so now he had to host the show. And it just made him so angry that I couldn't speak because now he had to work. And that was not what Jay wanted to do.
See, so we had it planned. I mean, when I went and did these with him, and still to this day do it, I never go live. I'm never live on the air during those weeks. Everything I do is just pre-recorded. So he was all about, okay, just go get this guy. Let's get this guy on. Let's get this guy on. To the point where you guys know how it goes, where random ass people will just walk around and be like, "You want to interview me?" And Jay would just say yes, just to interview these people. But then as they walked away, he goes, "We're not using that one, dog."
Well, yeah. No, you have to fill the week. Again, the whole goal is we work really hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we just do them all live to tape so that we can just, "Hey, you guys got enough for the show, right? Good. So we can go?" Good. That was the goal for the week.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you do.
Yeah.
You do that, or you do the, "Hey guys," Jay would do this. He'd have somebody on who we don't really care about, but we have to have that guy on so that we can get the guy that we really want. And Jay would be like, "Dog, don't record this." Telling people back in the studio, because you guys do it on site, record it on site. We were recording everything back in the studio. Somebody's job was to sit and babysit us back in the studio in case we had something, and we sat there all day. So they would just record it all back there, so we didn't have to do anything. Once it's back there, you guys build the show, we're out.
So I know, Fish, the one picture you posted, I'm glad that you had a picture of Jay and Jack Snow, because when you posted that and I saw it, I thought right away, I'm like, God, Jay loved him. And yeah. I don't know how many times I heard Jay talk about how much he loved Jack Snow. And it was Jack Snow and also Jack Youngblood too. And that was a guy that was on a lot of Radio Rows that Jay just thought that those two were just some of the coolest guys that he had ever met. And Jack Youngblood always was making his way around Radio Row too. And that was one where, yeah, John, he would walk away and be like, "I'm going to go outside. You do this one." Yeah. But if he knew what time Jack Youngblood was on during that week, he made sure he was in that chair ready for him to come over.
Yeah, Jack Snow was he was one of the best, man. I mean, we were really lucky with the Rams being in St. Louis that Jack Snow was a part of that, early on and for a long time, and Jay loved him. I mean, Jack Snow was the Marlboro Man. I mean, he was the Marlboro man. He was a tough son of a gun. He was the epitome and the definition of old school, and Jay loved him for it. And I mean, anytime we'd see Jack Snow, Jay would just light up like a little kid. You know, like his boyhood idol was in front of him. It was funny because he treated him like he was his boyhood idol. Yes, so when we got that picture, I mean, that was a picture we were both very proud of. The picture of me and Jay and Jack, and you know, he loved being around Jack. Jack was fun. Jack would drink his coffee. Jack would smoke his cigarette, and you could tell Jack had a few cocktails in his day too. He was right up Jay's alley. He was I think Jay wanted to be Jack Snow when he grew up.
He was Jack Snow. He just wasn't an athlete. He's the same damn person.
That's right. He was Jack Snow except for all the catches. Yeah, that's true.
And Jack Youngblood and Jack Snow are the same person.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And the other one too, the picture that I'm so happy I have of them is him and Leslie Visser. Because how many times did you guys hear Jay talk about how much he loved Leslie Visser?
And how much he hated Chris Visser. Yeah. Because
I didn't know if we were going to say that here, but there, Fish did it for us.
For those who don't know, Chris Visser is Leslie's brother, and he would be at every Super Bowl, and he was like booking guests for people, and he'd get in your way. He'd be annoying as hell. And Jay had like radar for Chris Visser. We'd walk into the Super Bowl, the media room or whatever, and all of a sudden he'd go, there he is. And you're like, what are you talking about? And because he knew where Chris Visser, and I think it was a twofold thing. I think he annoyed the hell out of Jay, and he was Leslie's brother, and he didn't want him around Leslie either.
God, sitting with him at Super Bowls, and that just, we sit at that table and put the headsets on because we didn't want anyone to talk to us ever. Stay away. Don't come and talk. And just Jay, he people watching with Junior was, you couldn't stop laughing because he could find them and he'd just have one little sentence and you'd be in tears and he would just be deadpan looking at him.
Yeah. It was something special for sure.
God. Well, he has left us all with many stories, many and the ones that we haven't told on the on this
or can't tell. Yeah, those two.
Yes, that the stories that the three of us will sit here and talk about once I hit the end of the recording. Yeah. On this are pretty amazing. But he is God, he's gonna be missed. And Fish, I you know, just the way that he would say people's names, the way that we will never hear that again. For Fish, for how many years you worked with Stats, and the way that he said the name Stats Norsworthy is just one of those things that is just ingrained in my head and will be, I think, until the day I die.
Yeah, I think every partner I had after Jay, he'd say their name in a unique way, almost as if to say they're not as good as I was. You remember that, right? It was like Jack Eaton, Jeff Weinberger, Brett Norsworthy, Stats Norsworthy. I mean, it was like, dude,
who are these?
We haven't worked together in 20 years. Let it go.
And I ended up sitting behind Stats at a Cardinal game this year, and I made sure to send a picture of it to Jay. And I could just imagine him opening up that picture. Yep. And saying in his head, Stats Norsworthy.
Yep. He said, and he would always reference one of the live spots that we would do on our show. Whenever he'd come on our show, he'd come on and he'd make fun of one of the live ads that we have. He's like, you know, how's Cordell and Cordell doing? He's like, yeah, he knew where to needle.
God.
And John, now that we've lost him, we're losing one person that apparently is allowed to call you Bobo still in this.
That's correct. There's Fish, Claibs, Tony Hubert, Haas, and that might be it now.
Dave Green.
Dave Green. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. And no, Jay was one like everybody else. Very territorial about that name. There are very few people who are allowed, and if you do it and you're not, I don't remember who it was. He did it to somebody. Somebody called him, used that name, and he jumped him. You're not allowed to call him that. There are only a few people who are allowed to call him that. Very protective.
And that's the only way. Yeah, he's the only time I ever called you that was when I talked to him. It was if I was with him, and that's the only I referred to you as that, and that's the only time I ever did it because I knew he'd know exactly who I'm talking about.
Right, but you're not allowed to call me. You can't do it to my face.
I know,
you can't say it to me.
I've never have. It's only when I'm like, "Yeah, Jay, Bobo's going to do the show with me tonight." That's the only time I've ever done it is with him. I'm glad to know Dave Green's on that list though, so I can still say it to him now.
Yeah. I thought I did pretty well this whole time not calling you Bobo.
I was stunned you called me John. You called me John and like I don't know since I was 19.
It was very difficult. I don't know how many people still know you as Bobo, so I was afraid to do it. They'd be like, "Huh?"
There's about 10 probably. 10 left.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, guys, thank you very much for taking this trip down memory lane, and hopefully it did us all well sitting here and telling Jay stories for the last half hour.
Absolutely. Joe, thanks for doing it, Joe. It was fun. It's always fun to tell Jay stories because all Jay stories are fun.
Absolutely. That's a great way to end it. John Marecek, Rob Fischer, I'm Joe Roderick. Thanks for tuning in.